Look at the number 0. It is so ordinary you've stopped seeing it. It's in the corner of every clock, every price tag, every page number. You learned it before you could read. It feels like it has always existed, like air, like counting itself. It hasn't. For most of human history, there was no 0. And the strangest part is that when it finally arrived, people were terrified of it. It was called dangerous. It was called the devil's work. Entire cities banned it by law. This is the story of how nothing became the most powerful number we have. Let's start at the beginning with a problem. Imagine you're an accountant in ancient times, counting sheep with pebbles. One pebble, one sheep. Easy. But now imagine all the sheep are gone. How do you write down none? You don't. You just don't write anything. For thousands of years, that was the answer. 0 wasn't a number. It was the absence of a number. And you don't need a symbol for absence. You need a symbol for something. The first crack appeared in ancient Babylon. The Babylonians had a sophisticated number system, but they ran into a problem we still have today. How do you tell the difference between, say, the number 2 and 200? In our system, the zeros do that work. 200, but the Babylonians had nothing to hold that empty space. So around 300 BC, they invented a placeholder, a pair of slanted wedges that meant there's a gap here, nothing in this column. But here's the key. To the Babylonians, this was never a number. It was punctuation, a mark to avoid confusion. It could never stand on its own. It only existed to prop up other numbers. The idea that nothing could itself be a quantity, something you could add, subtract, and calculate with, had not occurred to anyone on Earth. And some civilizations actively refused to go there. The ancient Greeks, the greatest mathematicians of their age, looked at 0 and recoiled. Their entire philosophy was built on the idea that numbers were real things, lengths, shapes, quantities you could see and touch. And they asked a question that sounds almost childish, but stopped them cold. How can nothing be something? How can the absence of a thing also be a thing? To them it reeked of a void, an emptiness that felt almost threatening, so they left it alone. And mathematics waited. The breakthrough came from somewhere else entirely. India. Indian mathematicians and philosophers were comfortable with concepts the Greeks had run from. The idea of the void, of nothingness, of infinity, these weren't frightening to them. They were woven into how they saw the universe. And in that culture, a radical idea could finally take root. What if nothing wasn't just empty space on a page? What if nothing was a number? In the year 628, an Indian astronomer named Brahmagupta wrote it all down. In a single remarkable text called the Brahmasfuta Siddhanta, he did what nobody had done in the history of the world. He treated 0 as a number in its own right, and he laid out the rules for how it behaves. A number minus itself is 0. A number plus 0 stays the same. A number times 0 becomes 0. This sounds obvious to you now because you were taught it as a child. But Brahmagupta was inventing it from scratch. He was writing the operating manual for nothing. He even pushed into territory that still breaks calculators today, asking what happens when you divide a number by 0, a question mathematicians would wrestle with for the next 1,000 years. And the moment 0 became a number, mathematics exploded. Because 0 isn't just one number among many, it's the hinge the whole system turns on. It's what lets you have place value, the idea that the same digit means something different depending on where it sits. It's what makes the number line stretch in both directions, opening the door to negative numbers. Without 0, there is no algebra, no calculus, no coordinates, no physics as we know it. The single symbol for nothing turned out to be the foundation that everything else got built on. From India, the idea traveled. It spread west into the Islamic world, where scholars embraced it and carried it further, refining the system of 9 digits and a 0 that we still use today. The very word went on a journey too. The Sanskrit word for it became the Arabic sifr, which is also where we get the word cipher. And as it crossed into Italy, sifr slowly twisted into the word we use now. 0. But when 0 finally reached Europe, it hit a wall. Around the year 1202, an Italian mathematician we now call Fibonacci published a book introducing these strange new numbers to European merchants. He had learned them growing up in North Africa, and he knew they were vastly superior to the clumsy Roman numerals Europe had been using for 1,000 years. Try multiplying with Roman numerals sometime. It's a nightmare. The new system, with its 0, made calculation almost effortless. You'd think Europe would have welcomed this. It did the opposite. People were deeply suspicious of 0. Part of it was practical. A 0, they pointed out, was dangerously easy to alter. With a single stroke of a pen, a fraudster could turn a 0 into a 6 or a 9, or add zeros to inflate a number tenfold. In an age of handwritten ledgers, this was a real threat, but part of it was deeper. 0 was foreign. It was tangled up with suspicion of the Arab world it had come through. Some clergy saw something unholy in it, a number that represented the void, the absence of God's creation, a symbol of nothingness in a universe that was supposed to be full of meaning. And so they banned it. In 1299, the city of Florence passed a law forbidding merchants from using 0 and the other new numerals in their official records. They were to stick to Roman numerals, or write numbers out in words. Other cities followed. 0 was quite literally outlawed. But you cannot ban a better idea forever. While the authorities forbade it, the merchants kept using it in secret, because the truth was undeniable. Anyone doing business with the new numbers could calculate circles around anyone still using the old ones. Bookkeeping that took hours with Roman numerals took minutes with 0. The advantage was simply too enormous to resist. The bans quietly crumbled. Within a couple of centuries, the number that had been feared and forbidden was the foundation of European banking, trade, and eventually science itself. And it never stopped. The same nothing that the Greeks feared and Florence outlawed became the bedrock of the modern world. Every line of computer code runs on zeros and ones. Every calculation that put a spacecraft into orbit, every temperature reading, every coordinate on a map depends on it. The empty placeholder the Babylonians scratched into clay to avoid confusion is now holding up the entire structure of human knowledge. The device you're watching this on is, at its deepest level, just an unimaginably fast machine for arranging zeros. So look at 0 again. That little circle you write without thinking. It took humanity thousands of years to invent it. A culture brave enough to imagine that nothing could be something, and centuries more to overcome the fear of what it represented. People argued over it, banned it, called it the work of the devil. And now it's so ordinary you don't even see it. The most revolutionary idea in the history of mathematics, sitting quietly in the corner of your clock, pretending it was always there.